Hello, everybody. In this next video, we're going to talk about the software that we need to be successful in this class. If you have picked up a copy of your textbook, which I hope you all have at this point, you should begin by starting to read the introduction and the first chapter. And as you read that material, you will discover that there is software that you need in order to work with Python. First and foremost, you do have to install what we call the Python libraries and the Python interpreter, which is the tool that allows Python programs to run. If you're curious, Python, because it's an open source language, does have an official website. So you can go to python.org and you can pretty much get a lot of information from here, current versions or old versions of Python, and a lot of interactive discussion from people who are interested in the community. Yes, Miguel, question?
What version of Python are you using?
Whatever the latest stable version is. I think right now it's like 3.9 something. I think is the current stable. And you know what? It looks like it's 3.97 if you were to do it today. And I'm not asking you to download from here, by the way, folks. I'm just showing you the site. But it looks like the current stable version is 3.97. If you have an older version installed, frankly, it's okay, as long as it's a version 3 point something. If you have a older version that's a version 2, there are language differences. What we are teaching in this class is the version 3 of Python. Okay. Now, to make it kind of as smooth as possible, what I did is I basically borrowed this information from our textbook. So when you see this little posting here inside of Unit X, this comes straight from the book. And first of all, there is a set of instructions here from the author. So I'm just going to click through on that just so you can see what it looks like. And he says, first, visit the Anaconda download. Notice I had that here as well. So if you follow this link, it will drop you here. And now you notice this isn't on the Python website, right? So this is a different organization that bundles together this product. And what we need here is the Windows version, if you're using, obviously, Windows, but there are installers for Apple and for Linux machines as well, if that's what you need, right? And so I know at least one of you here in the class is a Mac person. And so for you, you would just come here, click the Apple version, and then find the installer. If you are on a Mac or Linux machine, though, I will tell you, depending on how your operating system was built up, there's a good chance Python's already there. And people who run those systems often will bypass the graphical installers and use what we call command line installers to put it in, because sometimes those tools are already on your system. You just need to be activated. It's just a matter of typing a couple of simple little commands to get them going. But for Windows, just use the installer listed here. So you just click download. Now you notice the Anaconda build. Notice the version number of Python here, you guys. It's not the latest one, right? They're using 3.8. That's the one you're going to use then, right? Because we want all the tools that come with Anaconda. So the process for download is pretty simple. If you're on a Windows machine, you just click that button. It will pull down the installer. Now they're asking you here to sign up, for this service. You do not have to do that, by the way. Do not feel obliged. What we're really interested in is this file that's come down here. Now, rather than just go ahead and open it, I'm going to click on Show in Folder and show you what the downloaded installation file looks like. So this is it. I'm hovering over it right here in Windows. And so to launch that, you just simply give it a double click and follow the instructions on the screen. Now, I already have this installed on my computer. It would be redundant for me to do it again. But what I'm going to ask here, is there anybody in the classroom who's going through the process of it right now? Nobody, okay. Anybody online who's going through the process of it right now? Okay. Nobody's responding there either. All right, so the procedure then is to basically follow the screens. I know that I think I have this recorded in the previous video that's in this unit folder, so you can watch that if you need help with the step-by-step of it. And then if you need, right here, if you need detailed installation instructions, they do have, you know, a breakdown, and that link is this one here. My thinking is you probably don't need to do that. You know, I think the installer is pretty clear if you just go with all the defaults. Probably the most challenging question you're going to get is one where it asks if you want to add it to the path statement. That's probably the most challenging question. And if you guys can bear with me here a second, I did have a student actually asking me that question. And I think he sent me a screenshot of it. Okay, so here's the one of the last screens that you're going to get during the install. And so this student raced ahead. He was in my Thursday night section. And the next morning, he was sending me this email. Hey, I don't know what choice to make. And basically, my suggestion is to just click both the boxes and say install. And let me explain what these do. The first one, where it says it adds it to the path statement, and that means that Python programs can operate from anywhere in your file system automatically, which you do want. And that's mostly from a command prompt. And then to also register Anaconda as the default version of Python on your system, which I also recommend. I think those are both wise choices. If you do not check them, it doesn't harm anything, and everything will still work just fine. And it's really, you know, then it comes down to personal choice. But my suggestion is that you do check both of those boxes, and those are probably the most difficult of all the installation options that you have to choose from. Once you do have everything installed, so let's talk about what it looks like then. You would then come down here, and you will notice that there is a folder for Anaconda. And I want you to look at the tools that come here. So there's the Anaconda Navigator, the PowerShell prompt, so these are command prompts, the Jupyter Notebook, and the Spyder IDE, right? And the tool that we're going to mostly use is this tool called Spyder, and it's Spyder with a Y, right? So I'm going to go ahead and launch that tool just so you can see it come up on screen. You will notice as this tool comes up, it does take a little while for it to load, right? So whenever you're working with a programming tool, the programming tools are pretty big and robust and sometimes take a little while. So if you have an older, slower computer, it might take 30 seconds or a minute for it to load, just fair warning. My machine loaded up pretty quickly, but my machine's pretty brand new and pretty powerful. We'll come back and we'll talk about this environment in just a moment here. The other tool I want to point out in this listing is that there's the Anaconda Navigator, and I'm like tripping over saying it here. And if you bring that up, that kind of gives you sort of like this interface for being able to do a lot of things Python. And you see how long it takes for it to load up. And then when it is loaded up, this is what it looks like. In essence, it's really kind of a browser for, you know, working with Python. And the first thing you'll notice is right up here on the home screen, they give you a whole bunch of different tools that you can use to work with Python. So it's telling you right off the bat, you don't have to use Spyder to write Python code. You can use any one of the tools listed here, and frankly, there's many more, right? The most popular ones on this list, for sure, will be Spyder, because, hey, that's what we're using. That's the primary one for Anaconda. The Jupyter Notebook, also very popular. And then Visual Studio Code, which is Microsoft's open source code editor. And then there's also Pycharm. I thought that was, there it is, Pycharm, which is by a company called JetBrains. And you can get software from there for free. And usually we don't push our students to use their software, but we have found over the years that products from the company JetBrains are really pretty darn cool. And as long as you're a student, you can get all the stuff for free. So if you want to try an alternate product, that might be the one. But the one that we are mostly going to use is called Spyder. And what I'd like to do is now give you kind of a really quick little overview of how the product works. And so if you have your own machine and you're running Spyder, fantastic. If you're sitting on a school machine, I want you to launch Spyder from the start menu. Yes, sir. You can get it for free from JetBrains, yes. All right. So once you're on your system and this stuff is all installed, you can very simply just go to your start menu and just start typing Spyder. You see it up on the screen here, and go ahead and launch it. I already have the product up and running, and you can see on the screen here. These days, the product, I think, typically launches in what we call dark theme mode, like so the screen is dark, as a lot of code editors seem to be preferring it these days. I will tell you, I'm not always a fan. Sometimes I like the light background better, but you know, hey, whatever. And when we're working with this type of a product, it has a special type of name. So let's talk about that first. A tool like this is what we call an integrated development environment. So that means we can write the code, debug the code, and execute the code all right inside the same product without having to switch screens or switch computers or anything like that. So it's a complete environment for coding. A lot of programming languages have specialized tools for working with certain languages. Spyder is built to do Python, and so is really very well suited for it. On an opinion standpoint, do I think it's the best tool out there? Well, you know what? I'm fairly new to Python myself, so I can't speak to other tools being necessarily better, although people that use Pycharm seem to like it better. You can also code Python in just about any integrated development environment that will support it, including all the major ones such as Eclipse, NetBeans, Visual Studio Code, etc. And it's really just about the language support more than anything. You can also author Python code with just a plain text editor. And in many cases, you can also write Python code directly at a command prompt, which is kind of the mind blower for a lot of people. Now, the screen that we're looking at is broken up into three main areas. That's the first thing you're going to notice. This largest area on the left is what we call the code window. This is where we type up our code and save it as a file. It's basically a text editor that's capable of color coding whatever code you're writing so you can see if it's okay. This bottom right window that I'm hovering over right now is called the console. It's another word for command prompt, by the way. So in IT, whenever you hear somebody say console, it's the command prompt for the program. Interesting thing about Python is because it's what we call an interpreted language, that means it's executed on the fly as you give it directions. I can type really silly things like 2 + 2, press enter, and it will give me the answer. That's Python doing that, by the way. So you notice I just type 2 + 2. I know that's really, really tiny, probably hard to see, but it will do that. Or I can issue a command like print hi, and close my parentheses. Did I close them? No. And press enter, and it prints hi. Isn't that exciting, right? So that's the command line with Python. And this is one of the things that makes Python kind of an interesting language. With most programming languages, you cannot do that, right? You can't just type a command, hit enter, and it does it. But Python does. So as long as I'm working at a Python command prompt, which this is, it's the console built right into Spyder, I can test out commands to see if they work. And I've taken plenty of Python classes myself. In fact, I'm still in active training myself, where a lot of times the instructors won't have us type out the programs. They just have us do the stuff in the console, and that's how we do it. And that is kind of an okay way to learn it. Now, the interesting thing is you can find some tutorials for Python online where everything is done at the command prompt, right? That's cool, but that's great for temporary commands. What about programs that you want to run over and over again? Well, that's why you use the code window. So that's what we're going to do right now. Now, I'm going to actually come in here. I'm going to see if I can zoom in my code. You guys notice how my code is getting a little bigger here? I'm doing that by holding down the control key on my keyboard and using the zoom or the scroll wheel on my mouse. I can zoom in or zoom out to make it bigger. I will zoom in so you guys can see it real clearly. But you can also use the control plus key. Watch my console window is getting bigger now, right? Or control minus to make a window bigger or smaller. Hold down control and then plus or minus. Plus is bigger, minus is smaller. So I made each one of those just a little bit bigger. And the other area of the screen here is this top panel where we use it in a variety of different ways. Most of the time what I do with that third panel is I make it as small as possible and ignore it. I'll be real frank, that's how I use it. But you'll notice that it has this ability here where you can look at your variables, you can look at your files, the plots that are being created. And so this is kind of a multi-function window as you're working in Python. I'm going to make that console just a little bit bigger. And I'm going to come over here, and you're going to notice that Spyder probably has pre-created all this stuff that I'm highlighting at the top of the screen. You guys see that? Right? And those are little things that we call comments in the program. So they're not going to affect how the program runs. They're just there for information. And now, when you take coding classes with some teachers, and I'm just kind of putting it out there, I'm not one of those teachers, by the way. Some teachers will say, up here in the comment section, you should put in, the date, you should put your name in here, you should put the name of the assignment, etc. And some teachers will require that. I don't require that. I just want to let you guys know. Now, do I think it's a good practice? Oh yeah, I think it's a good practice, absolutely. It's kind of good to put your name on stuff, right? Like if you write something that's really cool, don't you want your name on it somewhere? So put your name in there. If you want to date it, you want to list the assignment number. It's not going to hurt anything. But this area up here, and you can see how the code is a different color. These are all in the form of what we call comments that have no effect on the program's execution. All right. Once we get below those, then we get down to the area where we can actually write code. Now you're going to see that I already have a command typed in here, and I was kind of teasing one of our other instructors, whose name is Saad, by the way. Yeah, spelled just like that, but with a capital S. And I just did this really simple little print statement. So I'd like you guys all to try this right now if you could. We are going to revisit this next week, by the way, but no time like the present to get started. So the first time you ever work on a computer program in any language, there's an obligatory first program you have to write, and that's what we're going to write right now, and that's called Hello World, right? I don't know if you guys ever even heard that before, but the very first time they came up with a programming language and they made a computer print something on the screen, that was the first thing they did. So now it's a tradition in every language to always do that, as goofy as it is. So I'd like you to type out that word print, and I want you to notice that it is all lowercase. If I change it to uppercase, notice it doesn't color code. Also notice the left margin here, there's a little red X next to it, means error. And if I hover over that red X, it gives me an error message. What it means, who knows? But it's saying undefined name print. And so the correct format for the print command is just all lowercase, the word print, followed by a set of parentheses, and then inside those parentheses, a set of double quotes or single quotes, but we'll start with double. And then inside those double quotes, your obligatory first program must say, hello, world. So go ahead and get that all typed in, just the way you see it on the screen here. I'll make it even bigger. And then once you have that in there, you come up here to the toolbar, and I want you guys to notice where my mouse is right now, and there's a button that's green that looks like a play button. And if you press that button, it will launch your program, provided there are no errors, and give you whatever output right down here. And I want you to look at this. It's telling me which file I'm running. I haven't saved it yet, so it's coming up as a temporary file. But it did put hello world on the screen just the way I typed it. And what I suggest that you do to make sure it's really truly working is maybe come in here and change this. Maybe say hello Racine and try that. And there's hello Racine. Is everybody here able to get that to work? No problems? All right. Everybody online's okay too? I'll assume that's a yes. If you guys aren't complaining, it's probably a yes. All right. So let's say you've written this first program. Now you want to save it so that at some point in time, you can bring it back. So now we get into this discussion of where do I save my files? Okay. So the answer to that ideally should be somewhere on your hard drive and or somewhere in your cloud storage. Right? I tend to work on my Google Drive. That's just kind of my preference for school stuff. And my Google Drive is installed on my machine, so it links up automatically with the cloud. And I store my stuff in my Python folder, and then I will make a new folder for this semester, 2021 fall, and then I will store all my work for this class this semester in that folder. What you guys might choose to do, and this is very much a personal preference. I can't coerce where you save your files, but I can tell you what works well for most people. What works well for most people is that typically in your documents folder, you might create a folder called, I don't know, Gateway. You know, especially if you're taking more than one class. You guys saw how I did that? I just used the new folder button in the toolbar. If you can't see that folder icon, there is this little arrow in the File Explorer that kind of shows and hides that ribbon bar in the File Explorer, right? Some people know about this, some people don't. So if you know about this, you're like, I can't believe he's telling us about the ribbon bar, right? Well, some people are brand new to computers when they come into this class, so I do have to show it. But you just simply click New Folder, and then I created a Gateway folder. Now I double click the folder to go into it, and since this is my Python class, I might just go ahead and say, oh, this is Python. I'm just going to call it Python. Or some people might make a whole folder for their semester. They might say Fall 2021, and then make a Python folder inside of that. You know, whatever works for you. I mean, it's your file system, not mine. But generally speaking, what I like to do is I create a folder for the class and then folders for whatever I'm doing. It probably also makes sense inside the Python folder to start creating folders that match up with your units of instruction. So for example, for my pseudocode stuff, I should probably make a unit X folder, and then my recipe and my flowchart can go in there. Right, that's a good place to put it. And then when I start working on my first computer programs in Unit 1, I'll make a Unit 1 folder, and all my stuff will go inside of there. Now, since I'm working on Unit X right now, I'm going to save my stuff here, but I'm going to do that from the program itself. So I'm just going to come up here, and I can either use the Save icon that's in the toolbar inside of Spyder, or I can go to the File menu and choose Save. and then find that location. So I'm going to go to where I have my Python folder. Will be different for you. And then my semester folder, and I'm just going to drop it in here, and I'm just going to call it Hello World. I want you to notice I'm not putting any spaces in my file name. And so we should talk about that a little bit. Doesn't matter if you put spaces in your file names. Typically not. For computer programming, though, you shouldn't. You should not. There's a lot of reasons. A lot of it has to do with how servers process program files. You cannot count on the fact that a server will process a space in a file name correctly, so you should just omit them. It's really what it comes down to. And then I'm going to go ahead here and hit save. And then you'll notice if I go to that folder, except I didn't put it in the right spot here. Okay, I got to go to that folder here. You will notice the file inside there. So there it is, Hello World. And then I want you to notice the anatomy of how it's named. Notice how it's got a .py after it. Okay, so this brings up a whole separate issue, which is really important. So those of you that are also in my Web 1 and my orientation class, you're going to get a healthy dose of this. Here is that file extension issue coming back one more time. For most of us, when we're using a computer, we do not see the file extensions. We would only see this. We would just see Hello World. But I would ask you as an IT professional or aspiring IT professional that you go to your view menu and then select file name extensions to be visible on all your files. For regular consumer computer operators, file extensions are basically irrelevant, which is why the Windows and the Mac OS obscure those from their users on purpose. But as somebody who codes and is an IT professional, those should always be on, right? And I was kind of equated to like being like a race car driver, right? A race car driver is not driving automatic transmission. They're driving a manual. Because why? Because there's more control, and you're an IT professional, so you want more control. You want to know your file extensions, so please turn that on and organize your files in a way that makes sense to you. Now, to complete the assignment that's attached to installing the software, what you have to do is basically give me a screenshot of Spyder running. So this is another skill that's going to become important here, because I will ask you often when you are submitting programs, I'll say, give me a screenshot of your code and the program running. And so I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. We're not quite there yet, and I will repeat this, in the subsequent weeks, but this is the procedure for it. So let's say your assignment was, hey, create the Hello Racine application. All right, so you follow the instructions, you create the program, it works. Now it's time to turn it in. So this is your procedure for turning in the homework, folks, for most coding assignments. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to start a new Word document. You want to do this in Google Docs, however you want to do it, that's up to you. But as long as you can output a Word document, that's what I'm hoping for. And so you might come in here, it might be nice to have your name on the document. Might be nice to have the class name, Python, whatever, and whatever. Homework, week 1. Okay. Exercise number 1, Hello Racine. All right. So I will ask you for a screenshot of your code and a screenshot of the program running. So I would go back to Spyder. And where's my code? My code's in the left window. Now, to take a screenshot, there's a number of different tools we can use, but I like using the ones that are built into Windows. And the primary tool in Windows is called the Snipping Tool. There are 2 versions of this tool, by the way. The default version is the one that you see me pulling up right now. So if you go to your start menu and just start typing snip, it should come up. And for some of you, it might come up as Snip and Sketch. Either one of those will work. I'll demonstrate both of them, but I'll start with the Snipping Tool. Once you launch that tool, you get this little window that pops up. like this. And then you click New, and then you notice my screen just grayed out, and my pointer turns into a crosshair. So you guys see that? And if I'm going to take a screenshot of my code, I'll come up here and do this. Just grabbing the part of the code that I need to see. And now it's captured. That's a screenshot. Then I'm going to hit the copy button in the toolbar. So that's the one that looks like two pieces of paper. So I hit the copy button. I jump back over to Word with the right document right here, and I just paste it right in. So there's my screenshot. That is pretty large. I am going to make it slightly smaller. The general rule of thumb is the text inside the image should be about the same size as the text in the document. That's a kind of a good rule of thumb. So this is still kind of large, so I'll probably take it down to, that's pretty good. Right, so there's my code. And then I'm also going to show a screenshot of the program running, which is also inside of Spyder, and that's right here, right? And so once again, I'm going to go back to that snipping tool. I'm going to use this new button, and then I'm going to come over here and highlight the program running. I might capture the whole console, honestly, but I only need the part that shows that it's running, which is really just this line here. So I might even draw on here. You can do this too, by the way. And that tool is up here at the pen. And then I hit the copy button again, go back over to Word, paste that in. That one's okay sized. And then what I also ask is tell me how it went. This was easy. No problems here, right? Or, like some people will often do, I can't get this to work. Help. Or, or I had a whole bunch of problems, but I finally figured it out. Whatever feedback you can give me is really helpful. And if you're having a problem where it's not working, first, I hope you would have reached out to me beforehand. But if you're giving me the comment here, I will look at it and give you ideas on how to fix it or whatever. But that's the combination of how we do that. Once this is all complete, you would save your document, and we'll call it Python example. And then that document will be submitted in Blackboard. So I will go to Blackboard, wherever the assignment was, and submit it. Now, because this particular assignment is an assignment to show that Spyder is installed, what should I screenshot? How about the whole product running? That's a really good, that's a good screenshot. So if you're looking for how to do that first assignment, I would just get Spyder up on the screen, however it looks, and you can come in here, create a new screenshot. This time though, I'm going to actually use this other tool. So I'm going to use this Snip and Sketch. This is the newer version in Windows 10. And by the way, for some of you, that tool will also appear in this status bar area. So you see this little bar down here that I'm activating, deactivating. And let's see, sometimes they have that tool listed here and sometimes they don't. I'm not sure why. Yeah, you can drag it in there. I think it might be relative to what you're doing on the screen, I think is what it is. Anyhow, if you use the new Snip and Sketch, notice that there's a shortcut key you can use. You can use the Windows logo key, Shift and S to bring it up. And then once again, the process is the same. You just hit New. And in this case, I'm going to grab everything on the screen because that shows that it's installed. I would once again do a copy. So you look for the two pieces of paper to do a copy, or Control-C. And then I would just go to Word, whichever one I'm working on, and just paste it in. Right? And you can say, here it is installed. Yeah, I got it. Right? That's the proof that you were able to do it. You can't really take the next steps in this class until the software is installed. For some of you, this will be super, super, super easy. I hope it is for all of you. Some of you might get stuck or have a couple of questions, and that's okay. We will functionally start coding next week, though, in class. So we'll talk about Python as a language, and then we'll start writing code. The intensity will quickly pick up, so as we get to like the third, fourth, fifth weeks, we're going to start moving away from really simple stuff like hello world to actually doing some pretty functional tasks in our programs. Right, so it is really important you guys have your books at this point, because next week we're digging into the stuff. And are there any questions at this point? Any questions I can answer that would make anything easier for you? Who's online, people? All right, I'm gonna take that as a no questions right now. I'll figure them out when I get to whatever, which is absolutely fine. So this video will end here, folks.